On the Enterprise C, we have Tasha, and then Riker. He gets to do his away team because all timeline Rikers want to do an away team. That's his thing. And he's got Tasha and Dr. Crusher and Geordi and some spares. They find the captain. They think the whole bridge crew is dead besides her. She is Rachel Garrett is her name. They transport her to sickbay to the Enterprise D's sickbay with Dr. Crusher. Geordi's trying to figure out what's wrong with things. He goes to engineering. He tells members of the crew, hey, we're going to engineering, of the away crew. And then Tasha hears something over in the corner, and underneath some debris is another crew member, and her and Riker help him. He's helmsman Lieutenant Castillo, and he's also known as Shooter McGavin, just in case.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up.
I can't.
Shooter McGavin.
I almost cannot take him seriously anymore when I see him in things.
I eat pieces of crap like you for breakfast. You eat pieces of crap for breakfast? No. Yeah.
It's like, it depends on like what stage of his life he's in, and so sometimes I'll think of that, and sometimes it's like, because he was in, what, Grease 2 or something? Was he was like one of those guys.
Yes.
Yeah. So then I think about that too, so whatever they're...
Well, I got two things in this scene. So Garrett is the name of Trent Janino's favorite pizza place. So that's why he named it Captain Garrett. And there was also a little mini error in this scene. Mm-hmm. So if you watch it again, when Dr. Crusher, she taps her badge to say, two to beam to the Enterprise. Mm-hmm. And so she taps her badge, and then she puts her hand on Captain Garrett, which gives the indication to the transporter chief who to beam her up mm-hmm. with. And then she goes almost back to tap her badge again, and then kind of catches herself and puts her hand down real quick. Mm-hmm. And they left it in the episode. I guess I don't know why they didn't want to film it, but it was just funny. She's like visibly knew she goofed, and she was trying to hide it.
Because she was annoyed with her hair or a wig or whatever. I don't know. I assume it was her normal hair, or if she ever wore a wig, then it was the wig, because it was like supposed to be shorter, but it was curled up a lot so that it looked like it was shorter.
Oh gosh, I don't know why they could never get her hair right.
But it was a different timeline, so her hair had to look different. That was
that's true. All right, different timeline, different hair.
They should have given her fair. A brown bob or something.
So it's a fair point.
So yeah, they beam to sick bay, and then Tasha Yar finds this guy, Richard Castillo is what his name is, and so I've been calling him Richard throughout all of my notes. And besides being in Happy Gilmore and Grease 2 and some other things, apparently he played a guy on Boardwalk Empire that had my last name, and now I'm like, I need to look this guy up and see if he was a real person, because it was like I don't know, like he had some sort of, like he was a senator or something, and I think that's cool.
Yeah. I've watched Boardwalk Empire twice. Yeah, he's like one of the local politicians.
Yeah, and I'm like, because I know sometimes in those things it's real people, and sometimes they have an amalgam of people for things.
Yeah,
so like,
which was they had both in that series.
Yeah, so I thought I would look it up later, but I haven't yet, because I watched this a few times so that I could get everything down. So the away team calls back to the Enterprise D and tells Picard that the life support is up and that Geordi's working on getting everything else going. Riker thinks they need an extra ship because, they're in war, and he's like, this could help us kind of thing. And, of course...
Oh my God. Well, I love it if you watch that scene where most of the scene Picard is not even looking at him. He's like he's looking at this tablet and he's like getting Riker's information through one ear, like recommendations, just another chippiness number 2
He's playing solitaire on his iPad.
That man's playing Galaga over there.
Oh God. So Picard's like, well, we've got to hurry, and then he gives them 9 hours, and it's so funny because to me, I'm like, 9 hours. So usually on things they give like even numbers of hours, but that's cool. Give them 9 hours. I like it. It's an alternate universe. Let's do this.
Yeah.
But he says that if they don't complete the repairs on by in that amount of time, they're going to have to evacuate everyone. If they can get it complete, they'll get them to the star next starport or whatever. And so that's that.
And the other thing, in one of the earlier scripts, the Guinan wasn't in there, so they were trying to figure out a way that the people of Enterprise D would find out about the change in history, and they had some alien probe or something that came in with Enterprise C. And I'm glad they nixed that because then they had Guinan. So Guinan's kind of our anchor point to what we know as the proper universe. And I think they did just a. I love her character anyway.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that they talked about bringing her into season 2 of Picard. So, but yeah, I think they did a great job of using her, just her intuition. They kind of leave a lot of her powers and about her species a little bit vague, which I like. You don't have to explain everything. So.
Well, there is actually, and I think it's more of a fan theory. I don't think this is canon. So talking about the movie Generations, which Whoopi Goldberg is in that movie. Her species, the Elorians, we know that the Borg devastated their species, and however few were left, scattered all over the universe. She was in the Nexus, if you remember that movie, and she left a piece of herself behind in the Nexus, like an echo. Oh. The fan theory is, and I read this on Memory Alpha, that because there is a fragment of her consciousness left in the Nexus, she has a way to have, she can see beyond regular, linear time. So, I mean, take that for what you will. I think it's a pretty fun fan theory. It's not, I don't believe it's canon, but I think it's a nice way to give a fan explanation. But also, too, to your point, Joe, they've left her powers very sort of mysterious, because when Q first sees her, he's obviously afraid of her, and it's very odd. They never really go back to that. But Q
did he call her a demon? Did he call her a demon?
Something like that, this creature, he calls her all kinds of things. And she's got this odd sort of stance where she's holding her hands very specifically. Yes. It's a very weird thing of are you claws gonna come out like Wolverine? What is gonna happen? But yeah, it's sort of a fan theory that it's because of the Nexus that she knows that this is not the right timeline.
My fan theory is that she's a Time Lord.
I like that one too. That is completely plausible.
You, Rebecca, have watched this last season, right? Did you get to see all of it?
Not all of it, but I've watched some of it, yeah.
Did you see Ruth?
No.
Okay. You'll have to, look it up.
Okay.
If anybody's watched it, they'll know what I'm talking about, and then they'll be like, oh, yes, of course. So, that's it.
I think Doctor Who I think the Doctor Who universe and the Star Trek universe could easily cross over.
Yeah, I mean, the Cybermen and the Borg are basically the same kind of thing.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you could even make the argument that, well, not really the Daleks, although they are a organic creature in a mechanical thing. But
are there any kind of monsters on there that aren't like any kind of aliens that aren't like humanoid, but also not like too far? You know, like there's not anything like the Daleks, I don't guess, in anything else. Like Doctor Who has other characters that are similar to that, which they're like other sort of robot things, but from the old show. But
I mean, I guess, well, like the non-humanoid. I mean, like the Trill symbionts.
Yeah,
they look like worms.
Yeah, they're like
or slugs.
Worms.
And they do need a host body.
It's sort of like the Dalek, but they have a metal body.
Yeah,
they're like octopus-looking things.
And the Trill relationship is much more benign than the Daleks are. Yeah. So basically, Trills are Daleks.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've proved mathematically that Trills are Daleks.
I don't know. Did you carry the 5?
Probably not. I stink at math.
Anyway, somewhere in my notes I had written, it confirms my belief that she's... Because Data says something about that her species is able to see across time differently, and making me sure that she really is a Time Lord.
I mean, 10 forward is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, so I think we're on to something here.
Oh, I like it. Oh, man. Back to Star Trek. So, Guinan, after they decide that 9 hours to either repair or evacuate, Guinan comes in. She's looking around, and she kind of acts like she doesn't really exactly recognize things, and she tells Picard, we need to talk because it's not the way things are supposed to be. And it's like, husbands don't want to hear that, and neither did Picard. So then we see...
Oh, that's hilarious!
Thank you.
Oh, man.
We see them in his ready room, which is funny because it's like his ready room is more like the observation deck room that they usually go in, the observation lounge. I couldn't remember what it's called. You know, because he's got more of a table because it's more like a war room because it's a war ship and everything. So, but they go in there and she's telling him that things are wrong. She's like, your uniforms are different. The bridge is different. There should be families on...
What? Children on the Enterprise?
I mean, at least we know that this Picard also doesn't like kids. You know, and she's like, this is not a ship of war. This is really supposed to be a ship of peace, you know? And she's telling him that the Enterprise C has got to go back to where it came from. It has to. Because it has to make everything go back to the way it's supposed to be, basically. And
I love the board, the tactical board behind them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's got all the sector, and it's got all the Federation ships and the Klingon ships. And I couldn't read it, but in one of the things I read, it was that Trent Janino, one of those ships or something that says Janino on there on the Federation on one of them, but
neat.
I couldn't make anything out. So
it definitely has that sort of. Definitely feels like that like World War II movie feel where like they would, you know, those World War II movies that have like the whole tables taken up with this giant map and they're moving like tanks around with like these shuffleboard looking things.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if we attack from the east and then they attack from the west, like it's very much like that. And I like how this episode, it feels like a movie, how this episode really captures that like wartime feel, like we are at war. And that's another reason why Picard is like, children on the Enterprise. It would be like if there were families and children on an aircraft carrier that was, in the time of war. What a ridiculous thing. Who would do that?